search for who we are is a human quest for self-discovery that is innate in most of our minds. If you're watching this video right now, most likely it is a sign that you are beginning your own quest for self-discovery, and it is important to know that the journey never ends. In recent years, there have been increasing efforts in the United States to restrict or ban the teaching of certain aspects of not only American history, but world history, often under the guise of opposing critical race theory. This has led to debates about the appropriate ways to teach history in schools, with some advocating for a more inclusive and comprehensive approach, while others prioritize a more traditional narrative. This YouTube channel is not your traditional narrative. I do not teach narratives like Columbus discovered America, Vikings wore horned helmets, Tupac is still alive, but there's a place called heaven and hell. This course focuses solely on historical facts about humans on Earth.
The Biden administration issued new rules pushing twisted critical race theory into classrooms across the nation and also into our military. Our generals and our admirals are now focused more on this nonsense than they are on our enemies. You see these generals lately on television? They are woke. They're woke. Our military will be incapable of fighting and incapable of taking orders. You're going to tell some private, stand up. You stand up right now. I'm not standing up. You can't talk to me that way, General. We're going to have a whole different ballgame here. I don't know how they're going to work that out. The private's going to tell the general, don't you ever speak to me that way, General. I'll kick your ass. That's our military. That's where we're going. Woke. I know some of these guys. Boy, they changed quickly. They went right over to the other side. I heard that about a couple of them. The military brass have become weak and ineffective leaders, and our enemies are watching and they're laughing. We need a Republican Congress to ban critical race theory. You know, I had it banned through executive order, and it was fine. And then when we didn't get in, they immediately reinstituted it, but it was all gone. But they have to get it out of our schools, and they have to ban it in our workplaces, and ban it in our states, and ban it in federal agencies, and ban it in our military, maybe most importantly. In addition, if government-run schools are going to teach children to hate our country and racism, parents must be given the power to opt out of the horrible, horrible schools. They're being forced to send their kids to these schools. And we have to provide school choice. And we were a long way to getting it. The radical left is trying to rip our nation apart. And there is no depth to which they will not sink. You've seen it, and you've seen it strongly.
If you live in Florida, Texas, Georgia, New Hampshire, or any of the 18 states that have banned the teaching of critical race theory in schools, you're safe here because this is YouTube, not school. Well, why do some people feel as though CRT is bad? In Tennessee, an article titled, "Why is Critical Race Theory Dangerous for Our Kids?" on their Senate page states, "For months, parents have raised the alarm about the left's effort to brainwash our children by injecting critical race theory into public schools' curriculums. One Tennessee mom recently warned Williamson County parents that her 7-year-old daughter came home from school saying, 'I'm ashamed that I'm white.' Her daughter asked, 'Is there something wrong with me? Why am I hated so much?' This reaction is reason enough to start asking questions, the article states. But those who have yet to investigate the tenets of CRT will be shocked to know that this child's distress was the desired result of her lesson. If left unchecked, this mental and emotional trauma will worm its way into every classroom in America."
Most of us are moved by white tears because we don't actually think they're real. It's a performance. It's a switch that you turn on because you know that we have been socialized to see you as more human and of more value. So whatever it is you think and whatever it is you feel, we are supposed to respond to it. Y'all don't respond to Black women crying the same way. Nobody does. Nobody does. The minute a white woman cries, the world has to stop. Oh my God, what's wrong with you, baby? Black women cry, we could be rolling around on the ground screaming. And you are moved because you've been socialized not to see us as human beings. Fuck. Our tears don't matter to you, but a white woman, and y'all know that shit. That's why I'm not here for the fragility. You know that. And so you very deliberately turn the shit on as a way to avoid accountability.
Yep.
Purposefully. That's not fragility. That's manipulation. That's strategic. That's diabolical. That's not fragility. And so this notion of white fragility is supposed to tell us what? We're supposed to let you off the hook because you can't handle it? No, you don't want to. And every time we hold your feet to the fire, all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You didn't have to know. And now that I'm trying to make you know, you want to cry so we can end the conversation. This is how you run away. So how do I hold you accountable if you're all up in your feelings? How come I don't get to be in my feelings? I'm sitting here telling you about generations of your people, your ancestors killing mine. How come I don't get to turn tears on and move you? Sounds like I should be the one crying, no? Sounds like those tears should be mine. Sounds like the fragility might be mine, but no, I gotta be strong. Look at me. I got to sit here and this is the thing that really pisses me off. In your tears, you now expect me to hold your hand and rub your back and make you feel better because you're crying. Again, you're centered. Your experiences are more important than mine. That shit is diabolical. I'm not here for it.
CRT is defined similarly in every literary reference used to describe the subject. The description used in the International Journal of Multicultural Education describes the disciplines as seeking to understand how racism has shaped U.S. laws and policies. The subject focuses on the academic and legal theoretical framework of racism underlying U.S. laws and policies. The discipline is standardly taught in universities and colleges in the United States. According to research, while teachers do not teach critical race theory in K-12 schools, legislators have invoked the theory as an umbrella term to refer to any critical teaching of race or white supremacy in an attempt to restrict critical discourse in the classroom. Politicians, rather public school teachers, not go into depth about the underlying systemic issues each ethnic group may encounter in a lifetime from discriminatory U.S. laws and policies.
North Korean education system is designed to turn out disciplined, devoted citizens with a heavy focus on the group over the individual, and above all else, devotion to their supreme leader. If they didn't look so young, you might not believe they're first graders. By the time they reach elementary school, Pyongyang students have typically learned their country's most sacred lesson: shedding the individualism of youth for the collectivism of North Korean society, and most importantly, loyalty to the leader. What do you want to be when you grow up? I'd like to be a journalist, she says, so I can spread the greatness of the Marshal Kim Jong-un throughout the world. You'll find the same photos of the late leaders in every classroom and every home, and the same level of discipline. Even outdoor exercise is critiqued. Classes are praised for moving in unison. These Pyongyang orphans will practice for hours until their routine is perfect. Demands are even more rigorous at the International Football School. North Korean athletes are expected to be the best in the world. All students get free uniforms provided by the state, even at the prestigious Kim Il-sung University. How much is the tuition to come to university?
There's no tuition fee.
It's free.
Yes, it is free.
There's a lot of students who would really like that, I think.
I mean, all of them actually study for free. We don't even know the meaning of tuition fee. We just know it by books.
The main focus at the university level is science and technology. North Korea strives to be strong and modern, but only a rare few can access the internet.
Have you ever been on Facebook?
Facebook? What
Never
is
heard of Facebook.
For all the discipline, there are brief moments when kids can act like kids, at least until it's time to go back to class. North Korean students are now required to finish the 12th grade, and all are eligible to apply for university, although the entrance exams are highly competitive. North Korea teaches its own version of history and current affairs. It's one of the reasons why access to the outside world here is so tightly controlled. Will Ripley, CNN, Pyongyang, North Korea.
But the great bulk of individual government employees are doing their very best to do their job. But the institutional arrangements under which they work make it impossible for them to do a good job. It's the system that's at fault, not the people. You had a dramatic example of this recently in Britain, where a government-owned trucking company, a transport company, was privatized, in this case by having the workers buy it, by a buyout, what we call a private buyout. That company had been losing heavily before. It is now making a very fine profit, and the shares in that company have something like quadrupled or quintupled. The same people, but the incentives were very different in operating. So I do not mean to criticize school teachers or postal service employees. On the contrary, what I want to do is to have a system under which they can do their job. I have had any number of school teachers who have complained that with the kind of administrative guidance they get from Mr. Honig and his fellow civil servants, it is very difficult for them to do their job. If you look at the record, the number of administrators in government schools has been going up much more rapidly than the number of teachers. The total amount of money being spent on schools has doubled, on government schools has doubled over the past 20 years per capita. The biggest increase in that has been for administration, not for teaching. But let's not divert the issue. The crucial issue is, shall parents, especially those in the lower and middle income classes, have the same opportunity to choose the schools to which their children go that we in the upper and middle income classes have? That's the crucial question. And to that answer, it seems to me you must say yes, and I believe personally that you must say yes to private and religious schools as well. Mr. Honig raises a question, shall the schools transmit values? No. The values of this country, of my country, of your country, has been formed by the people who occupied it, not by school administrators, not by educationists, not by the... We as parents should transmit values to our children. And we as parents, as citizens of our country, should in our political and ordinary activities, one with another, jointly form our values. That's what's made this country great. There wasn't any set of values dictated to the original occupants of this country. There wasn't any such simple set of values dictated to people of my generation or my parents' generation who were immigrants into this country or first-generation children. We got our values largely at home, at the school, and elsewhere. Schools transmit values, but we don't want a monopoly on the transmission of values. We don't want any small group of officials to have the power to say what values shall be transmitted. And yet that is what is happening now in a monopoly school system, and particularly as that school system has gotten more and more centralized. It used to be much better when you had local control of schools, because then you could have variety, diversity. But as the control of schools has moved from the local district to the city, from the city to the state, and from the state to the federal government, increasingly, the values that are being dictated are being determined by an increasingly unrepresentative selection of the population.
We do disagree on one basic point. I think a society that sets up an educational system that doesn't devote attention to transmitting its basic beliefs in democracy, in freedom, in character, is a society doomed for failure. It's committing cultural suicide. I think we can see the results of that system, and our question is how best to remedy it.
And you mean that
the U.S. committed cultural suicide in the first 100 years of its existence?
I don't agree with your reading of the first 100 years. If you go back and read educational history, they did have a very clear vision of what they wanted to transmit to their students. They had the McGuffrey readers. It was a very
Of course, but it was the parents who transmitted.
It was the school that reinforced it. It was the school that enhanced it. And it was a school that brought up these higher ways of looking at democratic issues.
If we begin our journey with history lessons from any government-funded school in the world, it is important to note the lines were unfortunately blurred to protect our perception of the government. In fact, this is partially due to the origin of social studies. Scholar Rachel Odell noted that junior high and high school students received social studies and civics lessons in public schools for the first time during World War II. She writes, indeed, the social studies curriculum was oftentimes immersed in issues concerning the war, ranging from current events to the promotion of American democratic values. High school students, in turn, responded in various ways to the topics that were discussed in school, many of which involved participating in activities that benefited the war effort on the home front. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, in a statement to a conference at the National Institute on Education in the War, encouraged teachers to promote American values by claiming that American schools have always been modes in which we cast the kind of life we wanted. Today, all we want is victory, and beyond victory, a world in which free men may fulfill their aspirations. So we turn again to our educators and ask them to help us mold men and women who can fight through victory. This supports why anti-CRT critics believe CRT is the exact opposite of what the U.S. government intended social studies and civic courses to reflect. U.S. public school social studies disciplines defined by the government is to promote patriotism. From the perspective of a black man, when the establishment of the U.S. elementary school was initiated in the 17th century, my ancestors were not allowed to attend school. Ancestors of the Native tribes were not allowed to attend school either. Throughout history, unity in America has always prevailed, but patriotism is quickly lost with supremacism resurfaces.
You include me into a curricula that is wrong. It is like pouring clean water into a dirty glass. That's right. I believe in corrective history. I believe in honest history. And you don't have to take white people out of history to put black people into history, but put them in their right place. I think the achievement of the Iceman Inheritance as a book is not that it is a great masterpiece of literature, but that it is a revelation coming from the side to the victims. And it is a revelation for both sides, saying things that we both must know, a situation we both must confront if we are going to end the cycle of murder so that both of us can walk in peace. And if we as a people who've been the victims cannot arrive at a point where we can say the murder stops right here. We cannot come to power and form a black branch of the Ku Klux Klan. We cannot waste our time developing theories of race when the concept of race is a myth. We cannot go into religions and use them as a rationale for excluding other people or oppressing other people when all organized Western religions are male chauvinist murder cults. All organized Western religions have made God ungodly. anybody that says his God gives you the right to enslave another people have made God ungodly. That's right. And anybody who says that his God chose him over other people have made God into a bigot. Yes. If God is love, God does not choose one people over another. Now, my complication around the concept of race and color began as a Baptist Sunday school teacher when I wanted to teach Sunday school at an early age. And so therefore I had to read the Bible, pronounce words like Deuteronomy, and I did. And then when I had to go through these little tracts, little fold-out Sunday school lessons sent from a white Baptist publishing company in Tennessee, and when I looked at all of those angels, all white, and I had a great-grandmother who told me God was love, God was no respecter of kith and kin, and he is the Father of us all. It was those angels that confused me. All the people that died, not one little brown or black angel sneaked into heaven. I began to understand something had gone wrong with God's book. Somebody had tampered with God's book. All right. Misuses were being made of the Holy Book.
It is an honor to come before you as a spokesman for my people, the American Indians of the United States of America. In these United States of America, this great country of ours, we American Indians, we can be anything we want to be, except American Indians. And that is created by the laws of this nation and condoned by its subsidiaries, the so-called tribal government, and designed for the Indian to fail, to be expendable, to be eliminated. I take you back in your history. After the American Indian hostiles had been subdued and forcibly confined to Indian reservations, it took approximately 30 years, one generation, for us to adjust and become economically viable, contrary to what the anthropologists say and what we even ourselves are taught as Indian people. However, allotments were made smaller, our remaining lands were open to homesteading, and we were forced into reducing our livestock. Nevertheless, we made the adjustment again in less than half the aforementioned time, 15 years, and become economically self-sufficient again. But once again, the American Indian was forced into reducing our livestock. The boss farmer concept was instituted. We were told what, when, where, how much, and how little we could grow. This applied to agriculture and our livestock. Again, we recovered in a time span of approximately 15 years. We were so successful in our third recovery that the American Indians enjoyed the finest of economic times, while the rest of the industrialized world was wallowing in the Great Depression. It was then that President Roosevelt introduced the Howard Wheeler Act, better known as the Indian Reorganization Act, the IRA, which institutionalized the so-called tribal governments, which are not one of our institutions, and it is still foreign to us this very day. We have yet to recover. 45 years later, the IRA, Indian tribal governments, on their own initiative, began renewed efforts at reestablishing their sovereignty focused on the oldest profession of American Indians. That's gambling. Bingo and other gaming operations has been, without exception, a proven initial success. Failure through mismanagement, politics, or litigation has been less than 15%, showing a better than 85% success rate. The new Indian-sponsored gaming industry on reservations dwarfed success ratios of any and all other non-Indian industries in America. Gaming operations have proven to benefit the revenue gathering of all governments, be they county, state, or Indian reservation. With regulation of bingo and gaming by the Congress, we are experiencing repetition of history. One shouldn't remedy success. The results? The United States government, through Congress, once again intervenes to regulate a proven success in violation of all basic and fundamental rules of economics and totally contrary to all laws of capitalism. American Indians are human beings. We are supposed to be citizens of the United States of America. We fought in your wars in other countries. Our Navajo Nation code talkers served and saved this nation in World War II. We have the inalienable right to joint venture with whom we choose, as long as we do not harm nor commit fraud upon anyone.
Removing CRT is an ethnic and identity issue. At an early age, American children are taught from a pilgrimage's perspective about the discovery of America. But if you ask a Native American, the story will reflect a different story and is equally as important to understanding U.S. history. This statement is true for all nations. This is like Jim Crow laws from a conservative perspective versus a black nationalist. Emphasizing one story over the other has caused recurring problems between white Americans and other ethnic groups. The dominant narrative, which is often rooted in white privilege, supports how education is a tactic of government control. Removing one understanding and teaching social studies leads to unconscious bias, not fear. One NAACP research states that the existence of white privilege and systemic racism is a clear and undeniable fact that is proven by research and lived experience. Stolzen suggests unconscious bias and white privilege are powerful forces that help to create and maintain barriers to racial equity. These biases can heavily impact our interactions with other people, particularly people of color, who are often seen through a lens of negative or stereotypical associations. Prohibiting this type of sociological analysis that comes with social studies makes it hard for marginalized groups to receive social justice and economic progress. This raises the question whether we are moving towards a more unified society, or are we assimilating to white supremacy culture?
There are literally two Americas. One America is beautiful for situation. And in a sense, this America is overflowing with the milk of prosperity and the honey of opportunity. This America is the habitat of millions of people who have food and material necessities for their bodies, and culture and education for their minds, and freedom and human dignity for their spirits. In this America, millions of people experience every day the opportunity of having life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in all of their dimensions. And in this America, millions of young people grow up in the sunlight of opportunity. But tragically and unfortunately, there is another America. And this other America has a daily ugliness about it that constantly transforms the buoyancy of hope into the fatigue of despair. In this America, millions of work-starved men walk the streets daily in search for jobs that do not exist. In this America, millions of people find themselves living in rat-infested, vermin-filled slums. In this America, people are poor by the millions, and they find themselves perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. In a sense, the greatest tragedy of this other America is what it does to little children. Little children in this other America are forced to grow up with clouds of inferiority forming every day in their little mental skies. And as we look at this other America, we see it as an arena of blasted hopes and shattered dreams. Many people of various backgrounds live in this other America. Some are Mexican Americans, some are Puerto Ricans, some are Indians, some happen to be from other groups. Millions of them are Appalachian whites. Probably the largest group in this other America in proportion to its size in the population is the American Negro. The American Negro finds himself living in a triple ghetto, a ghetto of race, a ghetto of poverty, a ghetto is to deal with this problem of the two Americas. We are seeking to make America one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for watching Humans on Earth. If you want to see more of these videos, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you.